Hi there, it's Urvashi Chopra back on your channel IELTS Groomers, and you are about to learn how your IELTS score is determined. We are going to look back in each part of exam module, which is listening, reading, writing and speaking. So let's get started. IELTS score vary between 0 and 9 band, and band 9 is the highest score considered in IELTS exam. For most of the purposes, the requirement is 6 to 7 band scores. But you should check your case, what score you need to achieve in each component of this test. So let's look at them one by one, starting with the IELTS listening. In IELTS listening, you are gonna get 40 questions. You will be awarded 1 point for each correct answer, and then those points are converted into bands. IELTS doesn't disclose the full scoring table, but we know some scores for certain that you need to answer for those 40 questions. And if you correct 30 questions, you will get band 7, and in 35 questions, you will get band 8. In IELTS listening and reading, you don't lose any points for incorrect answers. So even if you miss the answer, you must guess the answer rather than leaving it blank. So that's how the listening module works. That was a case for the academic IELTS. In general, the score varies. Now let's talk about IELTS reading. You know there are two types of IELTS, academic and general training. In academic, the passages are more complex and scientific. As a result, the questions in the academic IELTS are more complex in comparison to the general training. So on the other hand, in general training, you need to answer the more questions correct to get the same band scores. So I'll help you to understand this thing with an example. So when you are attempting your academic IELTS for band 7, you need to correct at least 30 questions. Whereas in case of general training, it is 34. Similarly, to get the band 8, in academic IELTS, you need to clear 35 questions. But in general training, the questions needs to be correct are 38. As I mentioned before, there are no penalties for the incorrect answers. So you need to answer all the questions even if you are guessing in exam. So that was about IELTS reading and listening scores, which are quite easy to understand. But in case of writing and speaking, there is quite complexity to understand those scores, because the band's descriptors varies in these modules. So let's understand. Now let's talk about scores in IELTS writing. In IELTS writing, you know we have two tasks, task 1 and task 2. Both of them are combined to a single writing task. Now how does your examiner decides the scores that you deserve for task 1 and task 2? They use 4 criteria. The first one is the task achievement or the task response. So the task achievement is used in task 1. On the other hand, the task response we see in task 2. They basically check everything that you are required to do in the task. Like they can check how you have answered the questions or everything you have done in the task that the examiner is looking for. So that was the task achievement. For the second criteria, we have cohesion and coherence. Many of the students are not aware of these terms, but let me explain you what does this means. So coherence is the structure of the essay. Examiner wants to see that the ideas are fully defined in a proper structure and clear progression from paragraph to paragraph in your essay. Like They want to understand and see that is your essay is easy to read and understand. So in terms of cohesion, it defines the flow of your ideas. The examiner is checking if your ideas flow from one to another. Like if your sentences are connected together in a good way using the vocabulary words. The next criteria is the lexical resource or your vocabulary. The examiner checks how many words you know and how you spell words correctly. And finally, the last one we have is grammatical range and accuracy. Your examiner checks how the complex structures of sentences you have used, the modals, the passive voice, and many of the grammatical things. Even they check your grammatical mistakes that you have made. All those four criterias makes 25% each of your task, and then the scores are combined for task 1 and task 2 score. Let me help you with an example in this case of writing. Let us understand this with the help of an example. If you achieve 6677 in task 1, so the average scores will be 6.5 bands for task 1. And in case of task 2, if you achieve 6777, so the average scores will be 6.75. And we can round the 75 term as 7.0. So, we should know that task 1 is shorter and the weightage in exam will be 1/3. For task 2, the calculations we weight as 2/3. So that's the 2/3 weightage of the exam which is carried by task 2. So the calculation works like 6.5 into 1/3 plus 7 into 2/3. So I have mentioned the 6.5 for task 1 and 7.0 for task 2. So the calculation will give you an answer for 6.83 and it will round off to 7 bands. But if the scenario is different and you get 7 bands in task 1 and 6.5 in task 2, then your band score will vary. Let's check the calculations then. The 7 bands for task 1 which you got will be multiplied by 1/3 and 6.2 in 2/3 term for task 2 will give you an outcome of 6.66 and the term will again be rounded off to 6.5 bands. So you see the difference that the weightage of task 2 is more than the task 1. So you should put emphases on equal of both task 1 and task 2. Now let's come to the last module is Ielts speaking. And here the person who asks you question is your Ielts examiner. He or she would reward you scores in exams based on the 4 criterias, which are slightly different from the Ielts writing. The first one is fluency and cohesion. Your Ielts examiner checks how fluent you are. Do you make efforts to speak or you hesitate? Do you even repeat yourself while you are communicating with your examiner? So this was about the fluency. And now coming to the cohesion, how your ideas flow from one to another. How do you connect your sentences while you are communicating? And the second criteria is the lexical resource. The lexical resource and your vocabulary. So they check how many words you know. And even if you know them, do you know you use them correctly or not? The third criteria is the grammatical range and accuracy. So they check how do you use different grammatical features when you speak and do you use them correctly or you commit mistakes. And finally, the last we have is your pronunciation. It is not about the accent. It doesn't matter to your examiner. They check how you pronounce the sounds, how you pronounce the words correctly. So all these weighs 25% and they all are combined together to make the scores of your speaking, as they were earlier combined in the writing task. So I hope you found my video very useful. If you really liked the video, hit the like button. Don't forget to share it with your friends and subscribe my channel. Thank you.